without further ado, I'm Dr. Lynn Harder, and I'm a faculty member in the School of Communication Studies, and it's an honor that I get to chair our school's Alumni Relations Committee. And as part of that, I get to interact with our Alumni Advisory Council, series of distinguished folks who come from diverse backgrounds. But the one thing that unites them is their commitment and love for Ohio University. So John is not just a two-time alum, and I will turn it over soon to Emily and she will formally introduce you, but he is a friend of the program. And I consider him a personal friend. I've had him speak in numerous classes and learned with him on multiple occasions. And every time I've walked away and something has lingered with me and transformed the way I viewed the world. So I'm excited for everybody to be able to meet him. This panel tonight is co-sponsored by Student Professionals of Communication Studies. This is one of the ways that even in the midst of a pandemic, you can still stay involved and connected with your peers and get to know each other and get to know fabulous alumni who remain part of the Bobcat family. So I turn it over to Emily Dingler, president of SPCS, to do the formal introduction of John.
Hello, everyone. I'm so honored to welcome and introduce John Cassese, a distinguished comms alum who will present tonight's SPCS panel, Storytelling, Elevator Pitching, and Linking, Creating Your Winning Career Strategy. John is a two-time graduate of Ohio University with a bachelor's in radio and television and a master's in organizational communication. He has held many positions throughout his professional life. He was one of the founding partners of Concentric Communications, a business communication agency. John was most recently the vice president of new business development at Pine Rock Productions in New York City. He moved to North Carolina and left the corporate world behind and is now an adjunct faculty member at UNCC, Queen's University, Winthrop, and Wake Forest. He also teaches an online class for the master's program of organizational communication at OU. John is a frustrated actor at heart. His television credits include the HBO series Oz and Law & Order SVU. So please, everyone, give John a very warm welcome.
Thank you. Let me set this up and make sure we can see it. Oh, Lynn, I think you disabled the screen sharing. Okay, there we go. And I want you to let me know when you can see it.
Hi, Sarah Schneider. I see you.
Lynn Harder.
The screen sharing is failing to start, Lynn.
Okay, so I'm going to try again. To share multiple, I just clicked the button to allow multiple people to share screens.
Okay, it's not, let me try again.
Oh, there you go, John.
There we go. Okay, there we go. Okay. All right, here we are. Everybody can see? Lovely, wonderful. All right, so welcome. I am delighted to bring to you what I call the greatest story ever told, which is in fact all about you and your career strategy. Not just finding a job, but strategizing your entire career. And therein lies the big difference. Now, okay, here are some ground rules. This is a safe zone, which means anything that you do, and if you want to participate, and if you want to ask questions, you can absolutely do that. Do not be afraid. More than anything, I want to tell you that no Bobcats are going to be injured during the course of this seminar. And I think you'll agree that you're a Bobcat, so it's time to keep calm and smile. Now, let me ask a question right away. How many of you are sick of virtual stuff? Really sick of it. All right. Don't you think that virtual meetings ought to be fun? You know, I certainly do, and I think a great way to start is to just get motivated and dance. And I want you to sit in your chair, and I want you to dance. I want to see you move. I want to see you dance. I'm not seeing everybody dancing. Let's dance. Come on, let's dance like nobody's watching. That's it. Come on, dance. Get into it. That's it. Now we go. Okay. All right. All right. I promise you, that's the most embarrassing thing that we're going to do. We need to stop now because this isn't a Miami game. All right? So let's concentrate on what's at hand. Now, it's time to break some myths. It's time to bust some myths about how to put together your career strategy, starting at the very beginning all the way down. Now, let me ask you a question. Let me say this, one more thing. You know, when people talk about putting together their career, they always say, well, you have to have the right mindset, or you have to be focused, or you have to be committed. Now, all that is great, but it doesn't amount to a bag of hair. Why? Because they're all philosophical things. They're all mindsets. Sure, you want to do that. You know, and everybody says you've got to have the right attitude. Well, attitude, schmattitude. Because if anybody was talking about attitude, I probably have the biggest attitude of anybody on this Zoom call. But attitude doesn't walk the dog, and attitude doesn't spank the monkey, my favorite Peter Gabriel song, and attitude doesn't get you an interview and a career. All right? It takes real tools and real stuff that can help you. And that's what this seminar is all about. Hopefully, you're going to walk away, even if you walk away with one or two things out of this, it will have been a success. Now, going back to all of you, here's a question. What is the one thing that employers are looking for more than anything? What do they want more than anything? This is where you join in, ladies and gentlemen. What do they want? What are they looking for?
Coachability.
No, one thing. Okay, keep going. Who's looking for a hint? It starts with an E.
Experience.
Experience! Who said that? Oh my gosh, the winner. Yes, they're looking for experience. But how, you may ask yourself, do I get experience without being hired first? Now, what if I told you right now that you have the experience and skills, but it's all in how you present it? And that's the first part of this presentation. Understanding how to take your college experience and translating that into business experience. How do you do that? Well, it's all about first thinking about you as a brand. What is your personal brand? What makes you special and stand out? That's why I asked you to write those 3 things down before you came to class tonight. So think about it. What are your greatest strengths? What makes you different from others? How do you translate your uniqueness into value? Because that's what employers are looking for. Think this too. Even though your career may be very short at this point, what have you accomplished, okay, at this point? What kinds of things do you have in your bag, in your bit of experience that will, okay, I can't get this back now. Here we go. Somehow I hit the wrong button. Hang on, folks. We'll be right with you in a minute. Okay. What are your greatest strengths? Okay, what are your most significant accomplishments? Surely you've done something by now. And when people come to you, what do they come to you for? What do you want to be known for? What do you want others to think about when you hear your name? This all comes into what your personal brand is, and that is how you start building stories about who you are, and stories are the first key building block of what we're talking about here. Why? And we're talking about storytelling. Now, we have all had stories. You remember when you were young and your mom used to read you a story, or your dad read you a story, or now maybe if you are a mother yourself, you remember reading stories to your children. Stories are very important. They are a key central part of our entire life because people love to hear stories. They love to be taken away. They love to have imagery in front of them. They love to imagine themselves in certain situations, and they love to learn. And stories are a great way to help you teach people about yourself. First, here are some tips and guidelines as you craft stories about yourself. Now, here's what it can do. Number one, a great story can provide meaning. It really can put things into a context. It also can evoke a sense of purpose, why you did what you did. Also, and this is key, it is a great way for you to present more interesting facts than data. Okay, no one wants numbers thrown at them. No one just wants you to say one thing about them. They want to hear the story behind it. I want to hear the story about why you are what you are. And this can help you do that. It helps. And you know, when you tell somebody a story, they may say, you know what, I've had that situation. They also help us empathize and remember. They can be evocative and they can inspire us. And they can also be unifying because everybody likes a shared experience. So this is what storytelling can do. But now we know storytelling certainly by the fairy tales that we were read, but how do we translate those stories into a business situation, something that can actually help you? This is all about doing your story right. Now, I asked you to talk a little bit about what your skills and abilities were and what your, you know, what defines you. Can I ask you, how many of you had teamwork, that you're a good team player? Anybody have that? Anybody have that they're passionate? Anybody have that they're organized? Then the answer is more than one person has used those descriptions. How then do you make that different for a potential employer? Everybody can be organized. Everybody can be a great communicator. Everybody can have passion. Big deal. So what? Somebody interviews someone, you hear that 5 times. What makes that different? What makes that different is how you take that description and how you build the story that tells me why you're passionate, why you're organized, why you're a good communicator, how you're a good team leader. What are the examples that make that work? And that is what building the story is all about. And you do it in a couple of key ways. And that's why I've built this pictogram for you. Number 1, you want to hook at the beginning. For example, you know, that reminds me of something that I want to share with you. Let me go into a little bit more detail about why I'm passionate. You know, I have a terrific example of how I am a team player and how that works. That's how you get them first. And then timing. You set the stage. First of all, where does it come in the course of your interview or the situation where you're meeting somebody? And timing is everything. You want to tell them, this is what happened last year. This is what happened when I was in college. Here's an example of a business situation that happened not too long ago. And then you get right to the point. I'm going to tell you how I saved a situation by being a great manager of conflict or being a great team player. And then you go into the story. You go into absolute detail about what that is, what the situation was, what you did, and what the results were. And most important, you want to make it vivid. You want to take that person with you. You want to make sure that you are creating the story so that they are right there with you. All right. This helps you build a connection. This helps you define yourself with the person you're talking to. They're going to remember you based on the quality of your stories. And that's the point. Now, how do you organize it? You're probably saying, well, that's just great, but how do I actually build it? Where do I put my information? I believe that if you build it correctly, they will come. Not only will they come, but they will hire you. All right. Some other keys. What defines a good story? Well, all the things that I talked about. If you want to hold the listener's interest, you want to give them bits of information that you think that they can relate to, or that really help flesh out the story and make it more than just words that you're espousing. Also, and here's the key, through the course of this story, you can present your skills and ability in a context that this potential employer or whoever you're talking to can understand. That is also going to let you be different, because they're going to actually see you in action. And the person may say, you know, I've got a similar experience, or here's what happened to me. It helps you build that ever strong connection. And that's what you want to do, because the more connected you are with somebody you're talking to, the more that they relate to you and you relate to them, the further your relationship goes and the better chance you have of being hired. And then at the end, you always want to talk about what the conclusion was, how it ended, what you did, what was the outcome. And always you want to pick something that was successful. Now, how to hold their interest. Let's talk about some organizational patterns. The first is a narrative pattern. This sets the scene, the plot, the characters, and it becomes, you use a lot of vivid imagery. I'm going to share with you, if I can, how I use storytelling without even knowing what it is, when it just came to me because I needed to tell a story, because I was in a situation that not only called for it, but it was vital for the success of a presentation my company was making. Let me set the scene for you. This is early 1990s, and we were still in the throes of the HIV and AIDS epidemic. It had only been around for about 10 years, and finally there was some medication that was coming out that was being able to help people. My company was presenting a proposal to Boehringer Ingelheim for one of their HIV and AIDS drugs, and it was a big pitch. We put together our creative presentation, and I have to say, I thought it was quite good. We were pitching against 4 other companies, so it was competitive. So they were going to be judging us not only on whether or not they wanted to work with us, but the quality and the correctness of our creative ideas, and whether we were on point with what they wanted to do. So let me set the stage again. We were walking into the room to present it, and it was a room that had raised platforms. So it was like an amphitheater, a lot like, let's say, the Colosseum in Rome, and we were the Christians being thrown to the lions. So we're setting up, and Jim, I know you'll appreciate this. Something went wrong. We had an equipment malfunction, and we needed to stall for time. The producer called me over and said, we can't get this fixed right away. Meanwhile, the clients are all coming in and they're taking their seats and they're looking at us waiting to get started. He said, you have to do something. I said, I have to do. He said, I don't care what you do. You just need to stall for time. All right. Once again, everything falls to John's shoulders. Why? I don't know. It just always works out that way. I went to the center of the room. I took a deep breath. I swallowed hard, and I began a story. And I decided to tell them the story of my association with the gay men's health crisis in New York City and how I worked with newly diagnosed AIDS patients, helping them understand the magnitude of their diagnosis, but helping them with little things as well, going to doctor's appointments, going food shopping, really being part of their buddy system. I explained that I had just recently been assigned somebody who was newly diagnosed, and I met him after his doctor's appointment. And I said, Bill, how did it go? And he said, the doctor doesn't know what to do. Nobody knows what to do. They keep telling all kinds of different things. I said, well, what did the doctor tell you? He said to go home and take as many vitamins as I possibly could until I vomited and couldn't take any more, and maybe that would jumpstart my immune system. Here we were in the 20th century with great medical science, and it was as if we were back in the Dark Ages. It was as if we were back in the time of alchemy. And I said, now, through the great research and development of companies like Boehringer Ingelheim, we're on the cusp of introducing a product that's going to help thousands, hundreds and thousands of people who are looking for a lifeline, something to help them manage this horrible disease. Out of the corner of my eye, the producer says, we're okay. And that's how we began the presentation. At that moment, necessity became the mother of invention. So not only did I tell a story, I came out. And in the early 1990s, it was not as accepted as it is now, but I took a risk. And it helped me and my company connect with our client. It had turned that group of individuals into an audience, and we proceeded to present our presentation where we in fact won the business. That's an example of using the narrative pattern in a storytelling situation. And believe me, I didn't know what it was until it happened. So, any questions? By all means, if you've got anything that you want to say, just stop me and we'll talk about it. Another way to go about it is to follow a chronological order pattern, something sequence. Here's what I did first, here's what I did second, here's what I did third. It's a very easy pattern, and it's something you probably do now without even knowing it. So based on this pictogram, would any of you like to give this a try and share a story with us using a chronological order? Does anybody feel brave? Does anyone want to give it a try? Are you sure? This is a great time to take one of your skills and abilities. Yes? Did you want to do one? Did you raise your hand, or were you just scratching your face? Did you want to? Okay. No. Yes. Anybody? Okay. All right. Maybe as we get further on, we'll warm up a little bit more, okay? So that's another pattern that you can use. You can also use the past, present, and future pattern. Here's what happened before, here's what happened now, and based on what I did, here's what the future is going to look like. Here is what happened. This is an easy pattern to keep in the back of your mind, and you can use it to organize your thoughts. It's great too when you're answering questions in an interview, but to build your story, you can use this as a pattern. Does anybody want to give past, present, and future a try? Okay. If you don't remember anything else, remember the pictogram. Hook them. The timing. Set the stage. Get to the point, and get to the point quickly. Don't tell me, show me. Make the story come alive. Make it vivid. That's the key to storytelling. Now, these stories that you create, and maybe right now you're thinking about how to create stories that are based on the skills and ability that you came to this seminar with. All right, so how can you use them? Well, you can use them in a number of scenarios, what we like to call the elevator speech. What is the speech? Where do you do it? How do you use it? How do you make it most effective? The elevator speech is what you use to introduce yourself if you've got 30 seconds, 60, 90 seconds or more. And the goal is to quickly and effectively tell somebody who you are and what you've done. And what you want to do is make it more interesting. And we're going to get to how to do that in just a minute. The elevator speech too, or also, is something you use when you're meeting somebody in a network event or job fair. You're going to go to these. Somebody's going to come up to you, you're going to come up to them, and you're going to want to be able to introduce yourself and not search for the words, because nothing is worse than somebody who is just trying to find the right thing to say at the right time and to put it together. And you know that if you have not practiced it or don't have a kind of organizational pattern in your mind, that you're going to go all over the place and it is going to be disjointed and you're going to go back from one to another. So this, if you do it correctly, will be something that you can pull out of the quiver of arrows that you have and use. It's the great way to answer the question, tell me about yourself, and you're going to hear that in an interview. Chances are you're going to sit down and the person interviewing you is going to say, now, I have your resume in front of me, John, but why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? It's their way of being able to judge you right away and hearing how you present yourself in this kind of situation. And it gives you the opportunity to really begin it in a very strong place, okay? Because you're taking control. A little trick about interviewing, don't wait for them to ask that question. Sit down, say hello, you take control, and you say, I know you've got my resume in front of you, but why don't I tell you a little bit more about myself? Right then, you have switched the tables. You have disarmed them. They have shown you that you can take control and that you're confident. Keep that in the back of your mind. And you can also use it if you ever get lucky enough to be in an elevator with a CEO that you want to work for. So what makes it effective? You always want to create TOMA. I believe in acronyms. They're easy ways to remember things. TOMA, which stands for top of mind awareness. You want to be clear and concise. You want to make sure that you have practiced it so much that these words fall out of your mouth, and you want to make sure they're well organized. We'll get to an organizational pattern in just a minute. And here, you want to define your skills and abilities and what you have to offer, and you want to cite clear examples of your success. It is a great way to take the stories that you have been working out and insert them right into this elevator speech, because that's what's going to make you stand out, and that's what's going to make you different than anybody else. You can also add an interesting fact about yourself. And as we've talked about, stories make make this interesting and compelling, and that's what you're trying to do. That's what makes an effective elevator speech. There are nuts and bolts things that you use, but these stories that you insert are going to make it 1,000 times more effective. All right. I always say, be specific, be terrific. Get to the point. Say your name, what you're majoring in, where you're going to school, what you hope to be doing. Tell them something interesting about yourself. Then, when you talk about your experience, that's where you insert the stories. And then always, in an interview situation, or even when you're in an elevator, you ask for the next step, an interview, a meeting, a phone call, a referral. If you're meeting somebody who you want to add to your professional network or you think might be able to help you, do not lose the opportunity to get their information. Take that information and then follow up. That's key. Here's a sample organizational pattern of an elevator speech. Hello, my name is Johnny Bobcat. I'm a senior at Ohio University, majoring in organizational communication, and I hope to pursue a career in sales and marketing working for a major pharmaceutical company. In my spare time as a hobby, I whitewater raft, scuba dive, and I dive for buried treasure at Sprouts Run in Athens, Ohio. Ha ha. Okay, little joke there, lighten the mood. During my time at Ohio, I have been active in several organizations and clubs. Most specifically, I'm a member of Phi Gamma Delta fraternity, where I've held the positions of membership chairman, new member educator, and president. This experience has given me a lot of great skills and ability, and I want to share something with you. Let me share an example of my creative leadership skills. And then I talk a little bit about when I was rush chairman or recruiting new members of the fraternity and what I did to be successful, how I went about it, what skills and abilities and tactics I used, and then the results. The plan led to 25 men choosing to pledge Phi Gamma Delta, which made it one of the most successful recruitment efforts in our chapter's history. That is an elevator speech. You all have an example of a success that you can put in there. It's just a matter of knowing how to create it and what to do based on what we talked about and knowing where to insert it. Now, does anyone want to look at this and give it a try off the top of your head? Does anyone want to try an elevator speech? No.
I'll go ahead and try, but my internet's cutting out, so I apologize if you can't hear me.
Who is this?
I'm Allison Jellick.
Hi, Allison. Okay, I'll tell you what.
All right.
All you do is fill in the blanks that are underlined and give it your best shot. Let me go back.
Okay. All righty. So hi, I'm Allison Jellick, and I am from the Cleveland area. I am a sophomore communication studies major, and I have minors in business as well as sport management. I am hoping to pursue a career in PR in the sport industry. So some things that I've done to get involved on campus to help me gain experience is I got involved with the media relations department at Ohio University with their athletic department, and that has helped me tremendously because I am able to produce content by writing previews and releases of the games and events that happen, as well as produce content during game day. So one really cool experience that I had was I was down on the court at a basketball game, and I got an amazing slow-mo shot of one of our basketball players doing a slam dunk, and that was a great opportunity for me because it taught me about where I needed to be at the right time to capture good content. Some other things that I've done is
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That was good.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say some other things that I've done is I've gotten involved in clubs such as Students Professionals of Communication Studies and Sport Business Association, as well as the Shea Sales Center. That's all.
That's excellent. That's really excellent. Where in Cleveland are you from?
I'm from North Ridgeville, Ohio. It's about 30 minutes west of Cleveland.
I'm from Euclid.
Okay.
All right, so Nice to meet you. Allison,
Hi.
that really was good. Right off the top of your head, you did exactly what you were supposed to do. You told me who you are, what you were doing, what you wanted to do, but your story was so interesting, and I felt as though I was on the court with you when you took that picture of the slam dunk. And the fact that you were writing content shows me that you're creative and that you're a good communicator. So just by doing those kinds of things, you have stood out. And one other thing I'm going to tell you, Allison, at the end of this, please give Dr. Harder your mailing address, because you're going to get a $5 gift card for being the first person to participate and to join in, which goes all of you. Don't ever be afraid to be first, because you never know what you're going to win by doing that. And when you are first, you set the tone for everybody else, and it shows that you are not afraid to take a leap. So congratulations, Allison. Use that gift card
Thank you.
on whatever you want to do. Okay? All right.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Well, I appreciate the fact that you jumped in. So thanks very much for that. All right. So if you're in an interview, you can segue to asking questions. Whoops. About the organization. Now you need to prepare to and do your homework. You know, you can ask the person what kind of skills they're looking for. You can ask the person a little bit more about the organization. And once they tell you that, if you've got 5 or 10 stories in the back of your mind, you can find the story that fits in with what they need. It's a way of you doing a little bit of research and really being ready on the fly to make that connection that we talked about, and connecting with a story that shows them, that you tell them. Now, you can also do this at a networking event. You also want to follow up. You always want to ask for that next step. You want to ask for their business card. But here's a tip. Have your own business card. Have your name, your contact information, your telephone number. Lose the Ohio University email address. Use something more professional. And you give them your card. And if they don't have a card, you take one of your cards, you flip it over, you write their contact information down. So then, no matter what happens, you have them as a contact. Now, here's a secret weapon. When you're in an interview situation, if you've done your homework, you will take a look at what they're looking for in this particular position. Do they want somebody who's a good communicator, somebody who shows good leadership skills, whatever it happens to be? You take at least 3 of their what they want, that they gotta haves, and you create stories that fit in with what their needs are, so that when you're in the interview, you can talk about what they're looking for, and then you can say, let me tell you a little bit more about how I'm a good leader. By doing this little reconnaissance work, or this little pre-work before you get into the interview, you are even more prepared than anybody else. Also, too, review the company's mission, vision, and values and know what they stand for. And don't be afraid to talk about that. If you do any kind of volunteerism, that's going to be very important, because companies right now are looking for social responsibility. They're looking for people who want to get involved and do more than just their job. If you can relate that in some way, by all means do it. And then if you talk about their mission, vision, and values and how it relates to who you are, and if it dovetails or fits in with anything that you believe, that makes it even stronger. People do not do this. They don't. They just walk into the interview and expect to wing it. With a little preparation, you are going to stand out and you are going to be hired. And this, I will guarantee you. Does anybody want to give this a try? Anybody want to take one of their skills and abilities and give me a story about it? Okay. All right.
Am I able to ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
Just because you're talking about being slightly prepared for any sort of interview question, one of the questions that I struggle most with is when I get asked what is like my weaknesses. Like I guess I'm better obviously about talking about things that are like I can work well with others, or stuff like that. But what would your advice be on thinking weakness wise?
Madison, that is a trick question. Okay. People say, well, I really don't have a weakness. I guess I'm very impatient and I like to work hard, or I push people as hard as I want to be, as I push myself. The way to answer that question is to really take something that you were deficient at or that you thought was a weakness and you improved it. And that could be anything. It could be writing skills. It could be presentation skills. It could be even understanding Microsoft Office. If you said, well, you know, I didn't think that my writing skills were as good as they could be. So I went to the writing center and I took a course in creative writing, or I took a course in how to improve my grammar. And now I believe I'm a much more proficient writer than I was before. So what you've done is taken a weakness, but what you've shown is how you improved it and fixed it. And
I
how
had the
now you're
drive
so
to
much
change
better.
it.
I'm sorry?
I had the drive to change it.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. Does that
Thank
answer
you. I
your question?
appreciate it.
Okay. Anybody else?
Am I allowed to attempt?
Yes, sure.
Okay, cool. So one of the words that I would use is motivated. So this past week, I participated in a leadership forum for event planners across the country, and I actually competed in a university challenge where I had to create my own event brief for a theoretical event in a post-pandemic world.
Okay.
I had to do this during all my classes and like between classes and between my meetings that I've been doing. And I actually won, and now I got a free trip to Germany to present this events brief.
That's great.
International meeting professionals.
Right. That's perfect. That's wonderful. And look at the great results. You get a free trip to Germany once this pandemic is over.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. That's perfect. Anybody else? That's really good. Okay. All right. Here are topics for your story. Here's some things that you can look at a little bit later. You may have some that you want to add to this, but these are topics that may come up. And if you've got something to talk about with this story, by all means, create a story. And even if you have to write it out longhand and do it a couple of times until you get facile at it, that's okay. Because the more you write it and the more you create it, the better it's going to be, the more you streamline it. If you can't remember anything else when you're trying to ask a question, remember the STAR pattern. What's the situation? What's the tactics you used? What's the action and what were the results? The STAR. Be a star. Keep it in the back of your mind. Pull it out when you need to. Okay. We're going to segue into the last half of our seminar today, which is your LinkedIn profile, which is more important now than it's ever been before. Okay. Why? Well, it is the go-to site for recruiters and HR managers. Now, if done correctly, it gives them a quick snapshot of all the important information about you. It gives you opportunity of exposure within your industry. So once you've got your profile built, you can use it to promote yourself within an industry or even within a company that you want to work for. If you connect with the right people in your industry or people in the industry that you want to work in, it gives you a chance to ask them questions. But in doing so, you ingratiate yourself to them and you have another contact. And maybe it's a contact who can help you. There are hundreds of LinkedIn groups that cover all kinds of areas. It's your opportunity to join them, to learn, to search around and find people that you think are going to be helpful to you. It also helps employers find you if they've got a job. And more importantly, it keeps your private life separate from your professional life. Let's all face it, we don't want a potential employer looking at our Facebook page or our Instagram account. Let's keep all that separate, but keep in mind that they may look at it if they want to find out more about you. So FYI, don't put anything on your Facebook page you don't want your grandmother to see. Okay. How do we create it? Well, first of all, your headshot's the first impression. You want a professionally taken photograph that shows you in the best light. That's key. This is important. You don't want one with your cat or your dog or playing or in a distance. Think about this as your professional photo. That's what it ought to be. It can't be anything less than that. Then you want to grab them with an attention-getting headline, okay? There's 120 questions in that headline. You want to use as many as you can, but you want to be creative about it. You don't want to use trite, overused words. You want to find some snappy, great way to introduce yourself that's going to make the person looking at your profile stop and say, hey, I want to know this person a little bit better. Your words have power. You want to do your summary, and you can take stories from your elevator speech and the storytelling that we did and insert it in your profile. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. You also want to take advantage of all 2,000 characters. You don't want to leave anything undone. And here, you can really be in control of your narrative. That's what's key. You really have control here because this is what people are going to read. So instead of having the the situation where where you're talking about yourself live and you may make a mistake, here you can absolutely control all the information and make sure always that you use proper capitalization in grammar. The summary is the place where you define yourself in your own words. How would you describe yourself? Talk about your biggest achievements. Show off your personality. If you can make that come out of the page, that would be great, okay? Your summary strengthens the first impression in ways no other part of your LinkedIn profile can. So keep that in mind. All right. Here's what you want to do. You want to describe what makes you tick. Passion is at the heart of some of the best summaries. Opening up about what you love to do is absolutely key, so don't be afraid to do that. What are you doing right now? Try to explain that in the simplest of terms. Sharing the problems you solve and for whom and how is a great way to demonstrate skills and your industry knowledge. Frame your past. All right. You have the freedom to call out what's important to you in your job history and to gloss over what's not. If you have done some things, and this is probably more true if you're further down the line, this is absolutely the place to rewrite your own past. There are famous people, and I don't know, does anybody know who Liza Minnelli is, or am I really being old here? She always says, yeah, all right, there's a very few people that raise their hand. We won't even go into who she is, but she always says you have the ability to rewrite your past. So you can do that. Okay, highlight your successes. The biggest takeaway from this should be look across the roles that you have participated in and combine your accomplishments if you can. This is also applicable further down the line, but for right here, talk about your accomplishments in college. Reveal your character. Choose stories that really show who you are as a person and try to be authentic. Try to be your real self. Show evidence of your life outside work. What are you involved in? Are there things that you're interested in? Are you interested in animal rights? Are you interested in volunteerism? Whatever that happens to be, put that in. And if you can, add rich media, add a video, add a link to an article, add your resume. All those kinds of things are extraordinarily helpful and will keep your summary interesting. Make your first sentence count. Grab their attention. Pump up the keywords. By that, go and look for job descriptions of things that you're interested in doing and put those keywords into your summary. Don't use jargon, text abbreviations, or emoji. Write how you speak. Write it out. Speak it out loud. If it doesn't sound like who you are, go back and try again and insert stories. The stories about who you are and what you've done can go right here. Also, you know that when you look at something that has an overwhelming amount of text to it and is very dense, you don't want to read it. The same is true with your LinkedIn summary. So you want to use bullet points and you want to have some white space. You want to have some breathing room between your paragraphs. And at the end, always ask for what you want. Don't be afraid to ask for that next step. Okay. These are some overused words that you might want to stay away from. However, if it does fit strongly in with your stories and who you are, by all means, just make sure your stories are very interesting and make you unique. Now, we're going to take a short break right now as I change from this screen to my LinkedIn profile. Can we see this?
Not right now, John.
Okay. Nope. Let's try this. How about now?
Yep.
Okay. Well, here's a profile of somebody I know a little bit about. All right, so you probably know, let's take a look at it and look at some of the key parts here. You probably know that you can change the background on your LinkedIn profile. If you haven't done so, to get away from that star background, do it. I like word clouds, and I like word clouds that fit in with what your career goals are. It makes it interesting, it makes it stand out. So don't be afraid to do that and change that. Then, down here, you have the headline. And I have offering communication and engagement strategies for 30 plus years to a variety of clients and industries. A little different. Hopefully it grabs their attention. All right? And that's what you want to do. All right. Here is the LinkedIn summary. Take a quick look and you can see that what I've done is split white space in between my paragraphs, and I have put some of the key things about my career in bullet points so that somebody can skim it quickly and read it. No one's going to spend a lot of time, so you want to get the most important information out as quickly as possible. And at the end, I would welcome the invitation to connect. Okay. Then I have also put my resume in. You also want to include it, and you want to make sure that your resume jives with your summary. I also have a promotional sheet about a seminar that I created called Persuasive Jiu-Jitsu, which is storytelling in the business world, which I have delivered as part of training to several PR firms and some other companies as well. Now, the other thing that you want to be aware of here are all of the groups that you can belong to. If you go up to the search mode, and let's say you're interested in organizational communication. Here is an organizational communication group that you might want to consider joining. You should also be, if you haven't already, now are part of an Ohio University alumni group, or if you're interested in a specific company, that company's website or a certain page that they might have. And then when you're inside that group, don't be afraid to promote your resume or to promote your LinkedIn profile. How can you do that? Well, you want to share some information, okay? You want to find an article that you find is interesting, you want to attach it to your profile, and then you want to share it. And hopefully you'll be reshared. You should belong to as many communication groups or groups that fit in with who you are and what you want to do as possible. And the more you are active with your profile, then the more visibility you're going to get. And the more visibility you're going to get, the more you're going to pop up in other people's profiles, whether that's a potential employer or a recruiter. So these are really small things that you can do. But before you get to this point, make sure that you have got your summary well written, that your resume is in place, and that you are ready with some stories that you can include in your summary that are going to make you stand out. So that's a little bit about your LinkedIn profile. Now, let me ask, here's a new share. Hang on just a second, we're going to get right back to it. Okay, can everybody see it? Are we back able to see? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So this pretty much wraps up everything that I wanted to communicate. We've got about 9 minutes left, but I just have one more word of advice. Along the way, there are going to be challenges. You are going to make mistakes. Trust me, this is all part of the learning experience. I have made plenty, and I am still making them, and I am still learning. So remember, no matter what you do, if you stumble, just make it part of the dance. No one's going to know. Just whatever you do, don't stop dancing. Okay. All right. Are there any questions? Thank you so much. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I actually have a couple of questions that came up throughout your speech. But, okay, the first one is about business cards. Like when you meet somebody, when it is an appropriate time to, you know, hand out your business card. I feel like you don't want to necessarily introduce with that, but.
Oh, no, you don't. You want to introduce with your elevator speech. At the end, you want to say, I'd like to take your business card, and if you don't have one, here's mine, but may I have your contact information?
Okay. And then as far as like working with like a company, like I have a company that I really want to work with. I've been wanting to work with them for a really long time. What is the best way to like reach out to them and to kind of distinguish myself from anyone else that might be, you know, putting themselves out there as well?
What's the company?
Steve Madden in New York City. That's my like dream job.
Okay.
So.
If you want to work for them, do a search. And what do you want to do for Madden?
I want to do like, I don't know, like event planning is most likely the route that I want to go with. So anything that has to do with that.
Do a search and find out who is in charge of event planning or marketing.
Okay.
You can find that out on LinkedIn. Then you LinkedIn with them. Then you write them a note telling that you're very interested in why. Tell them a little bit about your event planning experience and what you might know about Steve Madden, and ask to connect. And send them an email, and hopefully they'll get back to you. But if they don't, you have their name. So try to get, if they don't have it on their LinkedIn profile, their actual business address and use that.
Yeah, just because I know it's like a big company and I'm sure they're being contacted all the time. So I just didn't want to like get lost among everyone else. But
no, I understand.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. Who else? Anybody else have a question?
I have a real quick question.
Sure.
So as a freshman coming into college, and like if there is opportunities either online or in person, how would be the best way to go about talking about experience? Or if they ask you about experience as a college student, would you talk more about like stuff that you've done high school wise? Like I want to go into event planning and I have a plan to stuff for stuff like pre-college, but I just didn't know if you talk about that or you talk about more like student organizations.
You talk more about student organizations. I'm sorry to interrupt. First of all, high school is over. O-V-E-R, over. All right? Okay. You want to concentrate on college. You want to concentrate on the organizations that you were in college and what you did to help plan their events. If you haven't done that yet, do it, because you're going to need that kind of experience in order to get their attention. That's what you talk about, and you build those stories about event planning as we did at the very beginning of this seminar with the storytelling techniques that I gave you. That's what's going to be key.
Okay.
Does that help?
Thank you. Yes.
Sure.
Professor Cassese, I just want to join in real quick and let participants know, if you haven't been following the chat, do take a look at that before you exit, because fellow Bobcat alums have been sharing their information about LinkedIn. Some of those individuals own their own event planning companies. So do kind of pivot between both screens and take advantage of that. Thanks, John.
You're welcome. Anyone else? All right. Well, it has been my pleasure and my honor to have met with you this evening. I know you've got so many other things that you can be doing, so I appreciate you taking this little time out, and I hope it's been helpful. I hope there's been a strong takeaway. If you've got any questions, you can certainly be in contact with me. Don't be afraid to link in. I expect to hear from each and every one of you. And thank you and good luck. And if there's anything I can do to help you, please let me know.
And thank you, everyone. On behalf of Comm Studies, it is an honor that we have alumni like John who have, they're willing to pay it forward. They're drawing on their experiences. They're entering into learning relationships with you. And thank you doesn't convey our gratitude. Nonetheless, we offer our heartfelt thanks. Know that we have one more Bobcat to Bobcat this fall term, and it's with Dave Abram, who is chair of our Alumni Advisory Council, and he is on our call with us. That is November 17th at 1 p.m. and we're going to focus the conversation on sales and marketing professionals. So I hope that you will join us. Know that you can pay attention to social media, and we'll have flyers that describe and provide Zoom links for you. But in the meantime, stay well, everybody. Make smart choices. And thanks again for choosing to spend just a little bit of time with us.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.